Right here, down. Protect your out. We put the work in. Let's finish. Let's do this. Family, I'll do 1, 2, 3.
You see, we dream chase, cause that's all we was given to start with. Then we realized the dream was obtainable. Now look at us.
What's going on, Eagles Nation and TMTP family? Welcome back to another episode here on the Main Thing Podcast Presents. It's your boy, Mr. Owens. And after further review, the call stands. I'm still official with no stripes. Look, family, welcome back again to another episode here on the Main Thing Podcast Presents. As I expressed before, look, this is the end of the week recap, and this is everything that you're going to need to know heading into the trade deadline. But before I get into all of that goodness and fun, to our loyal supporters, y'all already know the vibe. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You know it's all love. The Main Thing Podcast Presents simply can't happen without the support from y'all. And to our new supporters, welcome to the community and our family. Look, let's continue to do our part as a community and family, all right? Please continue to like the videos. It does help with the visibility in the algorithm. Disrespect that comment section, share, and subscribe to the community and our content. And last but not least, you know, you ain't gonna want to forget to do this. Make sure you don't forget to do it. Turn on them noties and keep your ears and eyes peeled to the streets like your local neighborhood watch. Wow. So you don't miss when me and Big Hus drop this pressure on y'all. So let's break this all down. Where do we currently stand being the Philadelphia Eagles? All right. So the Eagles, we're in a competitive spot. We're contending in the NFC. This is nothing new. All right. But there are still gaps in voice to fill on this roster. As I mentioned earlier in the video, the trade deadline is Tuesday at 4 p.m. So mark it down, put in your alarms, put it in your calendar, put it into your manifestation thoughts, because that's the cutoff for any major moves. All right. So look, the front office, we already know they've shown that they have not been asleep. But some moves have been made, as we know. The depth has shifted on this roster, and that tells us that they'll stay active all the way up until 4 p.m. on Tuesday. Now, the challenge with this is balancing the win now additions with the long-term roster health, especially with injuries creeping in. All right. So some recent roster moves and injuries. Look, we got a trade on our hands. We got somebody who should have been here in the first place when he first left Green Bay at the beginning of this offseason. You know, the big one, it is Jaire Alexander. He came in from Baltimore in exchange for a 2026 6th-round pick. Eagles trade a 2027 7th-round pick. All right. So look, that's aiming to stabilize that boundary corner spot opposite of y'all know who. Guantanamo Bay locked up, won't let me out. All right. So look, we also landed Michael Carter II from the New York Jets, plus a 7th rounder. Y'all know how Howie likes to add that draft capital and have some capital for some ammunition to do things in trades like this, sending John Mechie II and a 2027 6th-round pick to the New York Jets. That gives more flexibility in the secondary. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages. Now, some injuries and depth changes. Safety Marcus Epps and outside linebacker / edge Oziz Ojulari have been placed on IR, which wounds the safety depth, of course, with Epps being the third string safety and the pass rush depth, especially with the Z's coming on in the last few weeks. We know that it's prominent for them to get as healthy as possible, especially in this second half run that we're about to go on here with the Philadelphia Eagles. So now this simply means it's more reliance on the younger group. Of course, the less proven names, the Jalen Hunts, the Patrick Johnsons, the Josh Uches, Jahad Campbell in that edge rotation, which will be significant. Those reps and snaps are going to be very, very meaningful in these games coming up. Now, Brandon Graham, BG, he can return if he is fully healthy and ready to go, but you already know he will provide that veteran impact off the edge, setting that tone, trash talking, junk talking, you know what I mean? And holding people accountable. That's what we need on this young defense. We all know that we have, I believe, the second youngest defense in the NFL or the third youngest defense. So you already know you have to have that voice that everybody listens to. You know, BG, he's going to lead by example, and those are going to follow suit. But Nolan Smith, he is still recovering. His return timeline is key, and that's whether we will push aggressively more for edge rush help, especially if Nolan Smith comes back in a timely fashion. Now, on the corner depth, keep an eye on Keely, Adoree Jackson. Rumors, they've been in some trade rumors and having their name dangled and floated out there, and possibly Perry Nickerson between being toggled between the practice squad and the active roster, especially with all the rumors with Keely Ringo and Adoree Jackson, and then the acquisition of Jaire Alexander and Michael Carter the second. Keely Ringo and Adoree Jackson can be expendable on this roster. Now let's reel it back and let's cast it out into our new big fish that we landed in Jaire Alexander. And what's some of this? What's his fit? And what is a risk with Jaire Alexander? All right. So let's start with the upside and what Jaire Alexander can bring. He brings veteran experience. He's been a high level corner when healthy with Pro Bowl and elite seasons in his past. He already has past relationships and familiarity in the coaching circles. One name here that rings bells, and we definitely got to keep him on the staff for as long as possible, is CP Christian Parker, and the defensive staff definitely knows Jaire Alexander and has some respect for his game, which makes it smooth for the transition curve when he does suit up in midnight green. Now, having him does allow more matchup flexibility. That's what we've been looking for in the secondary. All right. And in coverage, you can move some corners around, unload some of that stress off of Quintanamo Bay and Coop and the younger guys, and to cover the boundary more confidently. That's what we need. So you have a field side, which is the wide side of the field, and the boundary side, which is the short side of the field that the corner lines up in. And now look, if Jaire returns to form, I'm telling y'all right now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, the Eagles could have bought in some critical help at a relatively low and cheap cost. A draft pick plus manageable risk. What more do you want from Howie? Just let him cook. Let him do his thing in the kitchen. La cocina. Let him do his thing. But look, what are some of the risks and what could go wrong with Jaire Alexander? Now, it's always some good, but then there is some bad. And they always say, and what we say in football is the best ability is availability. Now, his availability and his durability have been red flags throughout his career. He has had stretches of being inactive or scratched. I believe in the last 3 games, if I'm not mistaken, with the Baltimore Ravens, he was a healthy scratch. So now it's only cause for concern to raise some questions about his ability to stay on the field consistently and help the 2025 Philadelphia Eagles. In limited usage in Baltimore this year, as I just was alluding to, he allowed some big plays and struggled in isolated one-on-one matchups. Now there's a trust gap that has to be rebuilt, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls in all ages. But I'm taking a risk and a gamble saying that Christian Parker and Vic Fangio will use Jaire Alexander to his strengths and that he can rebound here in Philadelphia. Now, he's not guaranteed to immediately dominate. We all know this. He has to work his way in and integrate himself in this defense. Now, the coaching staff will need to manage his reps and deployment, plus evaluate the matchups carefully, put him in an advantageous position, all right, in that secondary. Now, his role could be simple in base packages. Expect him to take boundary reps, possibly matching up with the bigger wide receivers and getting Quintanamo Bay or Coop or others to handle more of the zone shifts and the things like that in the back end. Now, in sub and nickel packages and sets, his presence could free up Michael Carter, Cooper DeJohn, as I mentioned, Cooper DeJohn, and others to mix their roles like that, because one thing about Vic Fangio, he likes his defense and especially his secondary to be versatile. He likes to move his defenders and things like that around. So getting a Jaire Alexander, getting a Michael Carter the second, and already having the talent that we had in the back end previously, look, it's a recipe for success, and we can only go up from here. Now, the snap count management will be crucial for Jaire Alexander. You don't want to overexpose him early, all right? Like, let's get some great matchups for him first and then see how and where he can grow in this defense. Now, look, I told y'all that the trade deadline is at 4 p.m. on Tuesday. And one name that has been being floated around the link to the Philadelphia Eagles is Jaelan Phillips from the Miami Dolphins, previously going to college at UCLA. And why is he getting buzzed to the Eagles? Why is he being connected to the Eagles? All right, look, let's break down Jaelan Phillips. All right, so we're going to break it down in the same format as Jaire Alexander with the positives, the risk, and the fit here in Philadelphia. So the upside with Jaelan Phillips is his age, and he's in a contract year. We all know that Howie Roseman loves to get his hands on cheap young players where he can manage and control the contract. He's just 26 years old. You'll get a younger player with potential for high upside. And again, Howie Roseman likes to control, have long-term control. So this can just be in high stakes audition for the young man. And his prior production over his career, despite injuries, he's totaled 26 and a half sacks, 30 tackles for loss, 64 quarterback hits in just 56 games. That shows that he has some real pass rushing talent when healthy. That was one of his knacks in UCLA. When he was coming off of that edge, he bends hard, he uses his speed, and he knows how to set that edge and get after the quarterback. And again, he has his familiarity with Fangio. Vic Fangio did coach Jaelan Phillips in Miami in 2023, and he reportedly holds him to a high regard. So that means a lot for a coach to sing your praises and to have that trust built with you. It only shows more positive signs to get Jaelan Phillips in the building. Look, that's the trust, the scheme fit, the insider knowledge that Jaelan Phillips already has in this defense. So this can be somebody who can really elevate our young defensive line and edge rushing room and take this defense to another level. Now, his market value, because the Dolphins are clearly obviously sellers, we all know, over the past few days, Chris Greer, their former GM, he was relieved of his duties. So Phillips is a name that has already garnered attention from teams like the San Francisco 49ers and the New England Patriots. So you know that, look, Philly going to have to put their self in there somewhere, and I'm pretty sure that Howie Roseman is doing his due diligence, doing all his legwork, and seeing if this is possibly a move that can help benefit the roster and benefit this team. So now with Jaelan Phillips, some risk and red flags is his injury history. The best ability is availability. Phillips has missed significant time over the past seasons due to some major injuries. That is a big red flag, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, especially when trading for an edge rusher. As I said, when he's healthy, he can bend, use his speed, collapse the pocket, and get to the quarterback. But with injuries and things like that, you need to be able to stay healthy, especially on the edge, because again, you're going to have to go against those bigger tackles and things like that on the outside. So your best ability is availability. And because Jaelan Phillips does miss some time during seasons, he misses chunks, and so we don't really have a baseline of Jaelan Phillips' performance. You're betting more on his upside than his proven reliability and the cost that the Dolphins are asking for. So I saw some reports suggest that it will at least cost a third round pick to land Phillips, and Philly will have to decide if that is the right move to make versus the safer, lower cost options. Now, me personally, if it's a third round, we have a lot of draft capital. I would pull the trigger for Jaelan Phillips, but again, Howie Roseman, he might be having something else cooked up his sleeve, but we just gotta be on the lookout and keep our ears and eyes peeled to the streets. But Jaelan Phillips, what would he offer in our scheme? How will he fit with the Philadelphia Eagles? We know the Philadelphia Eagles do need help at the edge rush position. And look, Phillips offers a high upside pass rush capability, which is exactly in the range of the most needy spot that we have left on the roster. Those coaching ties again help a lot with the scheme familiarity. That reduces the acclimation friction. That reduces the amount of time that he's going to have to come and learn the defense and get accustomed to the defense and things like that. So that's a positive in this. If we do in fact get Jaelan Phillips, he could be paired in rotation with, look, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Brandon Graham, Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt, Aziz Ojulari, Josh Uche. I can go on and on. Y'all know that we do have some dogs on that side of the football. And look, he won't necessarily be expected to carry that load immediately. We can just guide him in easily and then let him ramp up over the weeks. And in games when you simply need that pressure, you can deploy him situationally to maximize the matchups until his trust is fully earned again by Vic Fangio. So, with the trade deadline being at 4 p.m. on Tuesday, let's widen our lens. Let's widen our focus beyond Jaire Alexander and Jaelan Phillips. What other names might be fits for the Philadelphia Eagles to pursue? So some realistic targets could be Chase Young, formerly with the Washington Commanders and now with the New Orleans Saints, edge rusher, with New Orleans reportedly entering rebuild territory with Kellen Moore. Young's name has been floated around as a potential trade target. He still grades well in pass rush and run defense, something to definitely keep an eye on. Now, his contract, though, is more complex, though, so any deal will require cap maneuvering. Matthew Judon is another name that is out there. He's also from the Miami Dolphins. Judon has been named among edge rusher names that could be moved. If the Dolphins do decide to shed some veterans, Judon will definitely be in that mix. He's less explosive, obviously, than the younger Jaelan Phillips, but has a steadier reputation when healthy. So now keep our eyes also on Trey Hendrickson with the Bengals. That trade chatter still does exist involving him. So I wouldn't be shocked if Howie Roseman has been calling them Bengals and things like that and just checking around the league to see which guys are available. Now, the Eagles front office tends to carry more upside cost controlled players with scheme fits rather than going and overpaying for a person who doesn't fit what our chemistry and what our culture is here in Philadelphia. So they may prioritize younger and controllable pass rushers over the more expensive veteran splashes, and they might throw a dart, you see what I'm saying, and get Jaelan Phillips by also picking up a safer depth piece. So, what do we watch for? What are the storylines that we have to keep tabs on as the trade rumors continue to heat up? The next 48 hours or 2 days will be a wild one. Watch for the sudden leaks and the broken phone calls and those cap shakeups and things like that. How much are the Dolphins asking for Jaelan Phillips? What other offers surface outside of Philadelphia? And will Fangio make a push hard for him to Howie Roseman? That Chase Young chatter again. Can Philly swing something for him if we strike out on any of those other edge rushers? The first practice for Jaire Alexander, how many reps is he going to get on the field? How sharp will Jaire Alexander be? And how quickly do you think that he will fit here in Philadelphia? The edge rotation usage is going to change. Who is going to step up if a trade doesn't happen? All right. Who is going to get more snaps and make the most out of their opportunities here with the Philadelphia Eagles? So now some names might be getting moved on the roster just to clear up some space, not because they're bad players. It's just because they're not core players here in Philadelphia. One last thing to think about is with Brandon Graham returning and Nolan Smith returning, it's only a matter of time. Who knows? Howie Roseman might not make a move. He might sit because he might feel comfortable with those two players coming back, but only time will tell. So here's what I gather, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages. Look, the Eagles have already made some meaningful moves in the secondary, but the edge still does need some work. Jaire Alexander does fill a need, and he is worth the risk and the gamble. Jaelan Phillips is a tantalizing possibility here in Philadelphia. He has a high ceiling, but he is very high risk. If we can pair one of these splash moves with a safe debt piece, that will be the most ideal situation here for the 2025 Philadelphia Eagles. But look, don't blink and miss Tuesday at 4 p.m. Drop y'all trade wish list down in the comment section, Mr. Owens, because we want to hear what y'all thoughts are and why would you want to trade for the target that you put in the comment section. And like, sound off, would y'all push for Jaelan Phillips? Would you push more for Chase Young? Would you push more for Trey Hendrickson? Let us know. Or do you think that the Eagles should stand pat and stay modest? So look, keep y'all ears and eyes peeled to the streets. Me and Big Husk will probably drop a video tomorrow or Tuesday talking more about the trade deadline and things of that nature. So look, before I get out of here, y'all already know, to our loyal supporters, y'all know what it is. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Y'all know it's all love. Y'all know the Main Thing Podcast presents simply can't happen without the support from y'all. And to our new supporters, welcome to the community and our family. Look, let's continue to do our part as a community and a family. Please continue to like the videos. It does help with the visibility in the algorithm. Disrespect that comment section, share and subscribe to the community and our content. And last but not least, you better not forget to do this, and you don't want to forget to do this. Make sure to turn on that notification bell, also known as that Liberty Bell looking thingy, so you don't miss when Swoop comes out with the Eagles news and updates. But if you don't know me by now, don't you worry. I'll remind you. I go by Mr. Owens, and this is the Main Thing Podcast presents, where we keep the main thing the main thing. Look, y'all continue to have a blessed weekend. Y'all continue to stay up. And look, we look forward to having y'all back here at the Main Thing Podcast presents. But until then, it's been a pleasure.
It was I was gonna make a lot of money doing what I wanted to do. I I went after it, and it was a struggle to achieve it. But you know what? I caught that bitch. Dream chasing.